Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna let it out. Tonight, we gonna let it out. Tonight, we gonna let it out. Just like the sunrise, we gonna let it out. Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna let it out. Tonight, we gonna let it out. Tonight, we gonna let it out. Just like the sunrise, we gonna let it out.
Hey everybody, welcome in, welcome in. It's good to see everybody today. Don't know what I was going to say there, but it is the 21st of July. Welcome in everybody. It's good to see you guys. Hopefully, like I said, you guys had a great day. I was going to say Sunday, but it's Monday. That's where I was mistaken. And I knew that because I went to the doctor this morning, bright and early. And I can actually put the comments back up on the screen because we're done reading our book. We just finished, if you guys were following along with us, we just finished the book by James Patterson and Vicki Ward, The Idaho 4, An American Tragedy. If you guys missed parts of that, I do have it all on a playlist, and it should be in order. Might be backwards. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at it. I'll have to look at it for you guys. But it should be like, titled correctly. I can't speak tonight. So welcome in, everybody. It's good to see you guys. It's good to see the mods. Well, I think it's just Ladybug for now, but that's fine. That's perfectly fine. It's good to see everybody. I won't go through everyone's name, but it's good to see you guys. Since I had you guys kind of wait on me for a few minutes there, but I did come on early. Yeah, Jet said, I think so. Okay. So the reason why I think I'm thinking that you're referring to Trump. So I'm just going to assume. The reason why I think maybe Trump might have come out with this half statement. It's like not even, I don't know. To me, it sounds like he doesn't know anything really about what's going on, but he heard something secondhand, like maybe from his granddaughter, perhaps. She's younger. She's like in her, 20s? And she's always with him, I've heard. So I'm thinking maybe she was following the case and maybe she was like, Grandpa, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, but that was my guess. When I heard about it earlier today, I asked Vincent, I was like, this statement doesn't really seem like it's heartfelt. Like, if you're going to put out a statement, you think you would put the victims' names in the statement. I don't know. It was just not very. I'm not going to say it's nothing about. It's just the statement. It's not the person behind the statement. This has nothing to do with the person. This just has to do with the statement in itself. But I'll show you guys that in just a moment. We are going to go over a few things tonight. We're going to go over this new document that came out. Like we were talking about in the chat a second ago, Trump came out and said some stuff that he, I guess, wanted to get off his chest about Bryan Kohberger. And then we'll go over, there's a new interview that Kaylee's sister Olivia did with Brian Enton on his podcast. And I thought that tonight she was going to go on News Nation. I'm pretty sure she is. I'm not sure, like, I can't check it, but I'm pretty sure that she is. I think she'll be on there with Ashley Banfield. So maybe there'll be another interview. I don't know. But tomorrow I want to go over, there's like this really, really cool Daily Mail put together, like an interactive timeline of the whole, like the murders from start to finish, pretty much like the whole case. And I figured we'll go over that tomorrow night because that would be a good thing to go over, since on the 23rd, he'll be going in for sentencing. So it'll get us like kind of, all caught up in like, full circle there. First full circle moment we'll have. So, and I'm trying to think of what his granddaughter's name is. I can't remember his granddaughter's name. But I was thinking maybe, just like Kaylee had watched Olivia with Chronicles of Olivia on, TikTok. So that's why her family kind of went with, her, maybe something like that. But this is, oh, look at that prosecuting attorney. Can they not look at that document? That's a terrible document. Like where it says prosecuting attorney, it's all like different. It's like wobbly. Okay. So, this document came out today. I thought it was pretty funny, actually. I like laughed because I had to read it a couple of times. I was like, did I really just hear, or did I read what Bill Thompson just wrote? So it's the motion to extend the no contact orders. So back when this first went in front of Judge Marshall, she put in orders for the defendant wasn't allowed to contact the victims' families, or the victims in this case, meaning Dylan and Bethany. Now, when it says victims in like this aspect, I'm assuming that it's the same victims' families and then the two surviving roommates. Also, I'm sure that Hunter's in there and his girlfriend's in there, and there's probably a few other people that are included in that as well. And I'm sure we'll get that when all the documents do, they do come out. So it just says, comes now the state of Idaho by and through the Latah County prosecuting attorney, and moves this court for an extension of the no contact order previously entered herein, preventing the defendant from having any contact with the victims pursuant to Idaho Code 18-920. This motion is based on the fact that defendant has now entered guilty pleas to all offenses charged in the indictment and will be sentenced on July 23rd, 2025. No current contact orders expire on January 5th, 2027. And the state respectfully requests that they be extended for an additional 99 years. So I guess Bill Thompson ain't playing when it comes to this. No contact. He wants it for 99 years. After the 2027 date. Thank you. Kia, is her name really? I should have known that. I mean, I should have known, like, I should have remembered that name. I have a really good friend named Kia. That's who I was thinking of. I think that's who I was thinking of too. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe she said, hey, Grandpa. I mean, and she could too, If my grandfather was president of the United States, I'd probably be asking him for the same favor. Like, hey, Grandpa, can you do anything about this? So this went out on his social media platforms, and this came out earlier today. It says Bryan Kohberger, who was responsible in Idaho for the deaths of 4 wonderful young souls, has made a plea bargain deal in order to avoid the death penalty. These were vicious murders with so many questions left unanswered. While life imprisonment is tough, it's certainly better than receiving the death penalty. Does this sound like Trump? But before sentencing, I hope the judge makes Kohberger, at a minimum, explain why he did these horrible murders. Sorry. There are no explanations. There is no nothing. People were shocked that he was able to plea bargain, but the judge should make him explain what happened. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I don't know. I mean, this is all over magazines and stuff, so, but I'm still over here like, Kai. That's what it is. It's Kai. You're right. It's like, I think it's spelled, I pronounce maybe Kai. That's what it is. I was like, Kia. Remember Kia. Yeah, we'll be watching on, we'll be streaming the court proceedings on the 23rd. They're at 11 Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. their time. So I will be on a little before then, because usually they're late, so we just end up just chit-chatting anyway. So maybe that's what it is when that's 2 files. Banning kiss cams to save the Coldplay couple. Could you imagine? Speaking of which, I mean, you shouldn't have been on that kiss cam. But does this sound like Trump? I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm not listening to him say it, but I mean, I think it is him. I mean, Daily Mail's running with it. Other people are running with it, like other news organizations. But I would just think that you'd put in, I don't know. Now, is death penalty, is that usually capitalized? Or is it like, yeah, it is. Okay. Yeah. Maybe. No, maybe not. No. Yeah. Why are we doing that? So we've only got so far Daily Mail and the Mirror. I'm trying to see if anything else is. I'm sure there's other places that are. I thought I saw it on Fox. So I don't know. The old Donald Trump is on board though. He's like, I want some answers. Now, could you imagine being a judge? Now, can you imagine, like, seriously, being any of the judges in this case? Meghan Marshall, Judge John Judge, Judge Stephen Hippler. Just imagine, like, being any of those judges, and you see across your social media platform, Donald Trump, Bryan Kohberger got the hell of a deal. Jail's tough, but we want answers. Like, now, Judge Marshall's probably laughing. Judge John Judge is probably really laughing. And Judge Hippler's probably like, what do I do? What do you do in that situation? Do you listen? I mean, it's the president. What do? You don't have to listen because, I mean, he's not, I mean, you're a judge and state judge. I don't know how that works. Would you listen to him? Would you not? I guess. Is Idaho a red or a blue state? Do I even know? I don't even know that. I don't even know those things. Hey, she just come out live about 8:35. And welcome in. Yeah, I know. That's what I'm just like, I'm like, can he do anything about that? Like, can he do that? Doesn't it? It doesn't sound like him, in my opinion. But I don't really listen to a lot of stuff. I mean, I don't not listen, but I don't like actively go seek out what did Trump say today, But I don't know. Yeah. Well, we know it wasn't the White House correspondent lady that's usually up front doing all the news, because she's been outside doing news stuff all day today. I don't know what's going on at the White House, but they didn't even have her inside. They had her outside. So maybe something's weird. It is AI, Tanya. It is. So I wanted to show you guys this interview. I knew that I thought this was going to come out actually tonight, but it came out last night or today. So I think what happened was Olivia is giving Bryan Enton maybe the story, you know what I mean? Like giving him the first interview. And then tonight, maybe she's going to do News Nation. I saw that. I thought I was seeing stuff. I thought I was seeing stuff when I saw the stuff about MLK Jr. Man, they really are. It's him, Pete. Man, it just don't sound like him. Maybe because it's not a lot of. I don't know why what I think it would sound like, but maybe the judge will listen. I don't know. Maybe he'll say, "Hey, Bryan, he'll ask him if he has anything to say. Do you think that maybe the judge can be like, "Hey, Trump ain't gonna do nothing to me, but do you want to answer Trump's question?" Maybe they'll put that in there for Bryan to answer. Maybe Bryan will answer it. All right. So this is a really good interview that Bryan ended with Kaylee's sister, Olivia. If you guys have not seen Olivia in a while, because she hasn't done an interview in a couple of years, you're going to be very surprised by her appearance if you haven't seen her, if you didn't see her last court hearing. When she first walked by a last court hearing for like 2 seconds, I thought that was Olivia for a minute. And then I was like, no, that's not Olivia. Like Olivia, Chronicles of Olivia. And I was like, no, that's not her. So it was actually Olivia, Kaylee's sister. Okay. So I did put Bryan Enton's new podcast or new YouTube, sorry, I keep calling it a podcast, new YouTube channel in my description. I'm going to put it in the chat as well. So like if you go to this video, you'll just go back from this video.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out my new podcast, Bryan Enton Investigates. I'm going to take you guys on the road with me all over the country to all the stories I cover. Super excited. Please click and subscribe. There's going to be a ton of exclusive content. This week, of course, is Bryan Kohberger's sentencing in Idaho. I spoke with victim Kaylee Goncalves' sister, Olivia. She hasn't done an interview in years. You can imagine it was really, really emotional.
So thank you for talking to me, Olivia. I know, I hate to even ask this question because it kind of seems stupid, but I do want to ask you like how you're doing. I mean, it's been a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's very day to day for me, right? Recently, I've had a lot of really hard days of just feeling like, man, like this is the conclusion. I feel like for me, I did so much like legwork and like preparatory work to like prepare myself for trial and, be able to come in strong, come in true to myself, like almost harden myself to what we were, kind of expecting this to be, but doing it knowing that like I don't get to go to Kaylee's wedding. I don't get to go to Maddie's baby shower. I don't get to do these things. So in a way for me, it was like, I get to do this, I get to show up for you. So it's been really hard kind of grieving that part of it because I think I had hyped it up in my head to be this like grand gesture that I was doing out of like sisterly love. Mm-hmm. And then to have it taken so quickly has just kind of felt like whiplash. But today's actually a good day. So on that flip side, I think that I have days where I feel stronger and, you feel kind of a weight has been lifted. This isn't something that I have to put myself through. In fact, it won't happen. This is an outcome that I no longer have to stress about because I have 4 kids. They're all, younger, and the logistics of doing this for months in Boise was going to be really hard. So today's actually a pretty good day.
Like, I was literally under the impression that she just had the 2 babies. Like, because that's what it kind of sounded like. But it was because she didn't want it to be about her, right? But we were all growing attached to all of them, you know? So it was just weird whenever she's like, I have 4 kids. I'm like, oh, what? She looks a lot different, doesn't she?
What
Beautiful
was
either
it
way.
like at the plea hearing? I mean, I had been texting with you, but I didn't really get a chance to talk with you too much. But I saw you going in from a distance, and I was just thinking about you and your mom and your dad too, and I can't imagine what that was like.
It was honestly pretty annoying. And that's just honestly my first reaction there. We didn't have any sort of communication with the prosecutors, like, park here, we'll meet you, nothing like that. So we had to park across the street at Winco, just because we figured we'd be able to get a spot there. And as you're walking out, people start to, recognize probably who my dad is, maybe who my mom is. And it just felt like we were walking up already feeling kind of vulnerable, and then it just started closing in, right? And you're kind of just asking for space, and you need to back up and this and that, and it's really not given. Actually, on the way in across the street, because we were across the street at Winco, there were 3 officers standing outside of a cruiser, and I was like, hey, is there any way that you can kind of help us just like get across the street and into the courthouse? And they were super kind, and of course, they helped us in that way. I think the hardest part was my dad and brother waited outside of the courthouse. And that's hard, not to walk in united, but then also to respect that this whole process has, yes, we're united as a family, or, even all of the families, I'd say, but it is very much an individual path. I can't put my mom and my dad on my back and make them walk my path, and vice versa. So it was hard not to walk in with, my dad, who is, just our protector, and, our shield. So it was me, my mom, my aunt, my sister Autumn, and then actually a member of the Kernodle family, but we were all females. So it already just felt kind of vulnerable. And then the worst part was just waiting. So we walked in, they didn't know that we were coming. They didn't know who we were. And so we're just sitting there waiting. Eventually we get taken to a little waiting room and then moved into an empty courtroom, and we're just waiting. And the police officers are there, and they're kind of talking on their walkie-talkies back and forth a little bit. And I think that anxiety crept in for my mom especially. And it just felt like I just want to rip this Band-Aid off. Getting into the courtroom was also shitty. Everyone had been seated before us other than members of like the public and some members of the media, but all the families were there, prosecutors, everyone on the defensive side except for the defendant. And it literally, I'm probably exaggerating, but it felt like everyone turned and looked at us when we were walking in. We were in they're kind of pew setups. So I think that we were in that 4th row on the way back. And on the other side of us was members of the public. So once again, just like a very vulnerable feeling of, feeling misplaced, I guess. And then, yeah, once proceedings started, the judge kind of started in a funky way. I'll leave it at that for now. And that was annoying. And then
When he kind of like disciplined everyone about about people calling, it was really
right.
a weird way to start it.
Yeah, I think that in my opinion, I respect his decision, and I, even respect what he was saying. I think that maybe there was just a different way to say it, especially when on the flip side, he is kind of giving a lot more respect to the defendant, who's literally admitting to murdering 4 people, 2 of which were my sisters. So I understand it. I'm not picking a fight with the judge. But yeah, that kind of set things off on a foot that I think that we even less were expecting. And then,
Well,
yeah, it was
it was a little unnecessary. Like, I understand. Okay. not cool to call or whatever, right? But did he have to address it really? I mean, these families are only going to be what in his like courtroom for a day or two. So couldn't you just be like, maybe after the like proceedings were done, be like, hey, that wasn't cool. Like something like that. It didn't have to be the grand show that he put on.
It was literally nothing. I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel like, oh, this is the moment we've been waiting for. They ask a series of questions and it's, kind of as a nasally little voice. Yes, yes, no, no. And then, says guilty 5 times. And that's that. Thanks for the sign of respect, but you can sit now. So yeah, it was overall annoying. It wasn't necessarily emotional for me. And part of that could have been just how protective, I guess, that I was feeling of us being vulnerable in that state. But it was really hard to accept that that is an acceptable and even preferred form of, what is justice.
Was it weird seeing his parents? Because I had seen them the first hearing in Pennsylvania, but I had never seen them again. But I was wondering what it was like for you guys.
No, and it was just another thing where it's just like annoying, where I get it. I'm a mother. I have a son. But you think to yourself, and obviously I don't want to be in their shoes. I do want to, extend empathy. I don't know what that looks like. And I hope that, of course, I never do. But, my son comes home in the car that they're looking for, and he's aggressively cleaning his car in the garage at odd hours of night. I might feel a certain way. And then as more facts come out, I think that you can continue to love someone, but know that you don't support or condone their behavior or actions. I understand it was their right to be there. But yeah, that was a little frustrating. I didn't feel anger towards them. I just kind of felt like, wow, okay.
Huh. I would have been a little angry towards them if that was me. No, I'm glad that she wasn't. Because she's a stronger person than I am. I think I'd be mad at everybody though in that family, just because you're just, you want to put your anger somewhere. Like, I'm glad that she's not like that. I would be side-eyeing them.
And like you said, I mean, he just gave
But I do feel
these
bad for
one-word
them
answers and pled guilty.
being
I
in
mean,
my position.
what would you have, or what would you still like to know? I know you wanted other things to be in the plea deal.
Yeah, I think for us, we were taken aback by the plea deal because it happened so fast. And we never really had that conversation with the prosecutors that was like, this is happening. I need you guys to prepare yourself. If it's accepted, that's that. So we were really taken aback in general. Our main argument wasn't ever for there not to be a plea deal. It really came down more to, let's get a full confession. And I think that that is what would have made the big difference for us. And it's kind of multifaceted. It was difficult to hear Thompson make his factual basis. I think that's what they called it, because the amount of times you heard him say, and we can't prove that, and we don't know this, and we don't think this, in my opinion, was very weak, especially when there was an outcome, there was an ending here where we didn't have those questions, where, there was a full admission. I also think that the full admission would have been helpful, not only for our healing, because I think for me specifically, and I wish I wasn't this way, I need that full picture, right? I still just feel like I don't even understand what the hell happened, right? Like, none of it makes sense to me. And I can look at these facts, but as far as putting something together in my head that makes sense, it's really difficult for me to do with a lack of. But I also think that so many people are, invested or interested in this, and I do think that it has changed a lot of people's lives, and I think that they deserve to have the confidence as well. I think that there was certain elements, like where the murder weapon was, certain chemicals that he used on his car, certain receipts, certain data that was deleted from his phone, that could have been kind of corroborated potentially to further put to bed some of that white noise that exists online and some of what these conspiracy theorists continue to this day slander mainly my sisters through this process. And to say that, oh, he's a fall guy, or, he's not really guilty, or, XYZ, and use whatever convoluted, piece of something or nothing at all to kind of prove their argument. So it would have been nice to have that level of confidence. Not that we ever thought that this defendant wasn't guilty, just because it's like, let's put every nail in his coffin.
Yeah.
I don't have a more eloquent way to say that.
What did you ever get a chance to tell the prosecution that you wanted a full confession, and did they ever respond?
So as soon as we got the email on Sunday, I was kind of trying to do everything that I could. We didn't even know if the deal had been sent to the defense. But immediately I said, has this been sent to the defense? And can we include concessions for the victim's family in the form of XYZ? And at first it wasn't just the confession. It was also, kind of like, can we make him not be able to make money off of this? Can we make him not be able to talk to members of the media? I understand that there's First Amendment rights there and stuff, but in the moment, you're not necessarily thinking super clearly. You're just trying to say well, give me something here. And they replied the following morning and said that they could meet with us later in the afternoon, but that the deal had already been sent to the defense and there was nothing they could do. And then we met with them later that afternoon after the deal had already been accepted. So I even continued on after.
If he had just sent it over, he could have been like, hold up a second, Ann. Hold on a second, Ann. He could have said something. We're cool here, and I sent that over prematurely. I need to add a few things. I mean, he should have known that. This is his last case. I mean, he should know. Wouldn't you want to go out with a bang, not just a plea deal? I don't know. I feel like that's just so dirty.
The deal had been, accepted or whatnot, because it hadn't gone to court yet. It hadn't been accepted by the judge. And I continued to literally beg and plead that they amend it to include the full confession. At that point, that was all we were fighting for. And they eventually, replied and said that it would be an ethical issue for them to do so. So I think legally they could have, but because of the ethics for this quadruple murderer, they were not willing to make any concessions on our behalf.
I think on the outside, everyone has wanted to know what the motive is. Have you been able to get any information? Is there anything that we don't know about whether he, who the target was, or whether he had a connection to someone in the house, or why that house had?
I think that this connection theory started when they announced that this was a targeted incident, right? Because people, and they use this targeted incident as a way to say that the community was safe, right? I think that was definitely the wrong word choice. And I think that if I go back now and watch those press conferences with Sheriff Fry, you can see that, right? Where he says, we can't say that the community is a net threat, but by then the targeted had stuck so much for whatever reason. I think what they meant to say was something along the lines of, we believe these victims have passed some time ago and there hasn't been any further attacks on the community. And the roommates inside the house were home during this attack and they also were not attacked. So we think that the community is safe because of the time lapse that has happened here. But but I think maybe an easy way to say that is targeted. Maybe isolated would have been a little better, but I don't know if isolated was charged enough to kind of stick the way targeted did. So that being said.
And it was confusing. Remember, like they said targeted, but then the prosecutor said, then they said not targeted. Then the prosecutor said targeted. It was like the story
was someone in the house. Then it was the house itself.
Yeah.
Then it was the street sign and maybe the dog. Sorry, Murphy, don't mean to bring you up, but I genuinely don't think that they meant to get themselves into this targeted hole the way that kind of this targeted snowballed itself. But I think that frustration came from us with, it's like you're saying it's targeted and you literally say in a press conference, you're just going to have to trust us. And then at the end, it's all found out that, well, he didn't have a connection to anyone. So we're obviously sitting there thinking, well, then how the hell is it targeted? I don't know a why. I think that even if he was hooked up to a lie detector and given truth serum, his, why would be that he was just desperately trying to feel anything at all because he's a psychopath and he doesn't feel human emotions the way we do. I don't think it's a reason that would make sense to any of us because we aren't that. I think that reasoning would only make sense to that type of, human being or whatever you want to call him. But as far as the connection goes, I do truly believe in my heart that he at some point had spotted probably, I don't like to say Maddie because I think that naming someone implies a certain level of like victim blaming or guilt, and I don't feel that way at all. So that's why I have always hesitated from saying anyone at all. But if I just look at it from like a factual basis of being like, he went directly upstairs, Kaylee wasn't, in that house as much towards that tail end there. But again, they're all assumptions. What the hell do I really know? I think the most logical thing would be someone on the third floor because that's where he went first. And I think that's the only place he planned to go. And I don't think that he anticipated Kaylee and Maddie being in bed together.
Yeah, and back to what you said about the prosecutor's factual basis, it doesn't seem like they really know either, right? I mean,
they've told us they don't know. We didn't know if that was kind of a bluff and they had, something that just was covered by the gag or whatnot, but they have never told us that they believe it was blank.
Would you want Kohberger to speak at some point? I mean, you were saying how like...
So I guess we could have to guess at that one for the rest of forever, but I think we can all suffice it was probably Maddie.
For you want to know everything. Would you want him to like do some kind of interview where he tells all, or would...
I don't think so. And I understand how that sounds contradictory, but let me explain. I think that it should have been done within the bounds of the legal system where he didn't have control over it, where he doesn't get to, control this narrative where it's done in a sterile environment. And in a way that is, read or perceived as a court document. It's not about him. It's not about his name. It's not about his face. It's not about his voice. It's literally a means to an end, right? It's, this individual has this information, whatever, X, Y, Z, if you just think about it, like kind of in a calculated manner. So no, I hope that after sentencing, no one ever says his name again, because I think that an individual like he is, any attention is positive. He views it positively. It doesn't matter if someone's talking poorly or talking positively about him, because attention is what is craved and it feeds into his ego. So for me, I think the best way to, kill an ego is to stop feeding it. I I hope that his name is never on another headline. Call him the defendant, call him whatever you'd like. There's 4 other names that are much more worthy of, being written or spoken or remembered than his name. And to be honest, I don't say his name. I've never said his name. Like in an interview setting, very, very rarely within the confines of my own home, very, very rarely, in a text message with a family member or anything, because I don't think he deserves it.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned the people who do.
And that's why I thought, like, I know that they have to get out their grievances to him. Like, they have to talk to him for their victims' impact statements. But I just think that it would make such a big impact if there was nobody in there to make a statement to him, because then he would be like, oh, no one's got anything to say to me. Like, right? Like, I would just like to see the look on his face. Maybe they could do that for like a minute and then bring people in. I just want to see what he looks like. Just like the look on his face if he like wasn't the most wanted person in the room, like, we don't care to hear from you. We don't care to speak to you.
Matter, your sister Kaylee, Xana, Ethan, Maddie. I think something about them, I think, came through. And I think that that's the reason this story has become what it is. I mean, there's just something about all of them that is so special and wonderful and innocent and nice. You know what I mean? Like other stories that I cover, sometimes there's a reason, oh, well, the victim might have done this. These are just all such good kids. Like, and I think whether you're a mom who has a kid in college or whether you're in college and you relate to it, or whether, I don't know, there's something about Kaylee and the other 3 that really, like, something about it connects with people.
I obviously agree. And thank you for saying it. Yeah, I know that I didn't have the privilege of meeting Xana or Ethan, so I can only speak directly to Kaylee or Maddie. But they were genuinely good people. They weren't into, anything that is like associated with negative connotations. Like, they weren't bullies. They weren't mean girls. They weren't, stuck up. They weren't rude. They weren't, all of these things. Like, they were very well-rounded, funny, down-to-earth people who were right at that cusp of being like, we made it, right? We put in the hard work. We went to school. We got our degrees. Like, we did it, right? And then I also think just the nature of it, of knowing that, even in a community as small and as safe, I would still call Moscow a safe place, believe it or not. In the middle of the night, 4 of them, one of them being Ethan, who was a really tall guy, really strong guy, really tall and strong guy, to be taken in the way that they were is almost everyone's worst nightmare, right? Right next to the, did I hear something outside of my shower? So yeah, I think that it's the nature of just who they are and how just much they deserve to be here. Just as much as, like, I think they're just relatable, where it's like, I can look at Kaylee and see my daughter. I can look at Maddie and see my sister. I can look at, and I'm speaking from an outsider view, when I say that. I think they're all very relatable, and it's anyone's worst nightmare. It's a parent's worst nightmare. It's a sibling's worst nightmare. Aunt, uncle, grandparent, just, they did everything right. Ubered out, Ubered in, stuck with the buddy system. They were in their beds, not doing anything, doing exactly what they should have been doing. And it still happened.
I think people, because your dad has been the most sort of visible, and I think, and he's sort of, like you said, the fighter, and speaks on behalf of the family, and people just, respect him. But I don't think people realize that you're kind of like the fighter behind the scenes. At least that's what it seems like to me, and your family is so nice. I mean, your mom and your dad, I've been to your house, and like, you guys are so nice, and they love each other so much. There's just so many messed up families in this world. You know what I mean? And like, you can just sense the love amongst you guys. And like, when something like this happens, I'm sure with a lot of families, people, fall apart, I'm sure, but it just, I don't know. I've been so inspired, and same with like the Chapins who I've met, and but with you guys, just because I've been to your house and stuff, it's just amazing to me that like you're managing to, I don't know, just still be somewhat okay together,
Yeah, I think maybe it's just that stubbornness in us, like we're just too stubborn to split. I don't know. No, I'm joking. I think, yeah, we've always had a really strong foundation for family where, we've all messed up a time or two. And we also have, kind of a communication where I can sit there and say, no, you were wrong here. And I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. And then, we don't talk for a week or two, and then we're okay. We've always lived in an environment where you were okay to speak your mind. You might get your ass chewed for it, but at the end of the day, it was going to be okay. Like you would be heard and maybe considered, but at least you were able to get it off your chest. So yeah, and I also think that my family is super dynamic, and not in the traditional sense. I think that we all have really specific roles that we do a really good job of playing, and that's why it's so hard to lose Kaylee and Maddie, because they had really specific roles too. And we're not going to fill those roles, right? They're not replaceable positions or anything like that. But so it's like, you still feel that missing, right? At the end of my days, like I still feel that pain because they complimented all of us the same way that we complimented them, where Kaylee would never, ever, ever like a waitress could literally like pick up Kaylee's like bun and like spit in her hamburger and put it back down and, shove it in her face. And Kaylee would just be like, thank you so much. That wasn't Kaylee's role. That was maybe more mine, to be like, listen, Linda. But together we were all, we were a well-rounded family together. But I think individually, sometimes you see those not so well-rounded edges. I know they exist in me. I know they exist in my dad. And I think my dad
and I are kind of similar.
Yeah, I think my dad and I are a little alike.
Yeah.
But, in the beginning, I did a lot of interviews and stuff, but that was never my role to play. I think that I filled that to try to give my dad, a little bit of time. Basically, I felt like it was just kind of holding back those floodgates. And I realized that it wasn't something that I would be able to handle, just because the pressure was so intense, almost immediately. And I got advice from, a close family member who actually works in the media, just like a local station. And they said to me, you're gonna have to control the narrative or they will, right? And so that was kind of that deciding factor for us to, kind of speak with the media and, do these interviews. It was never about, clout or, wanting screen time or anything like that. It was always about, that advice from a trusted person, in this industry saying, you got to control it or someone else will. So yeah, I was very happy to put down my interview hat and be more of that that support position for my dad, to bounce ideas off of. And well, maybe don't say that. Well, what if we went about it this angle? It's not that I had any less fight in me. It was just that it was never my role to play. He's always been that position for our family. And I would never, ever, ever want to, take that from him. That's his. He's earned it. He deserves it, and he's good at it. So I'm more than happy to support him in, however I can.
What about like, I haven't read the book, but I saw some interviews this week about the James Patterson book, and I think there's other books that have been written in docuseries and stuff. I mean, are you okay with those things? I mean, I guess each one is different, but
Yeah, I think it just comes down to that. Each one is different. I know that Vicky Ward, who co-wrote the James Patterson book, she, reached out to us, and, we earlier were kind of offered to be a larger part of that book, and we declined for, whatever reasoning. I honestly couldn't tell you exactly why. But later in that writing process, she reached out to us. And so my dad and I, kind of talked to her, not in a formal manner or anything, just kind of in a voice for Kaylee to give it a little bit more like lividity or, vibrancy, and in more of like a fact checking manner. And so for me, I can respect something like that. Again, it's the floodgates. I can't hold them all back. People are going to, make money off of this and monopolize it. And I can't sit here and say, well, I did the media interviews because of X, Y, Z, and then get upset when someone else does. So I get it. Sometimes do I begrudge it? Maybe. But I guess it just comes down to, trust your sources. And I think that goes for, everything. If you're getting your news from a TikToker, named True Crime Bubble Waters or whatever, maybe just double check the facts that are coming.
She did not just call a creator out by their name. Thank God someone had to do it. Someone had to do it. Wasn't me. That wasn't my voice. That was Olivia. That was Olivia. Maybe I should get like an Olivia voice changer. That was really funny. I'm sorry, but if that was me, you would have saw me slide out of this chair and just like hit. You wouldn't even see me anymore. I'd be gone. My hand would come up. It would hit the end live, end stream button, and then I'd be out. People have asked me to like look at that person's. They're like, this person's page is really good. Go look at this person's page, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Now I know why. I'm going back. I'm listening to that again because I don't think Bryan Enton knew, but
I guess it just comes down to, trust your sources. And I think that goes for, everything. If you're getting your news from a TikToker, named True Crime Bubble Waters or whatever, maybe just double check the facts that are coming. But I think that in this process, I've learned that there's just a lot you got to let go. There's a lot of battles. And if you pick every single one, what's going to be left of you? So I try to be strategic with the battles I pick, and the books and the, docuseries, they're not a battle I'm going to pick.
yeah. And I think a lot of the people you mentioned, TikTok and the conspiracy theorists and stuff, I mean, they're always going to be around in any case, in any situation. I mean, you know what I mean? They're all just waiting to pounce. So I think it's better to just not pick those battles sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, some battles are, easier to let go than others, for sure, right? Like the demolition of the house. That was a hard battle to let go of. But, the books or, the YouTubers or the TikTokers, and a lot of them are very, positive, but, those are little battles. They piss me off for a minute, but I think that I just realized, like, does this individual have, a life that I, envy or aspire for? And if that answer was no, then I try not to concern myself with, the content being spewed out there. Easier said than done. I mean, clearly.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes. What about the sentencing? Like, I know you're getting ready for it. Like, where are you at in that process?
So my husband had to have a heart-to-heart with me because I was really conflicted. And I'll explain, kind of what I'm conflicted about, right? So originally, the victim impact statements would have been made after a jury had come to a decision on guilt, but before the sentencing. In that scenario, my victim impact statement would be directed towards the jury and the decision that they had ahead of them for the sentencing. So that's for me, a very pointed goal. I can come up with something like that. That would also be after a trial had occurred. We had seen the evidence, the exhibits, the arguments. So we would, be, armed with that knowledge, right? The secondary, reality that could have existed here is a plea deal was made, but the sentencing wasn't made, and the sentencing would be made by the judge. So I would be able to make a pointed, statement towards the judge who had a decision to make. But that also didn't occur because the sentencing was tied into the plea deal and will not be argued for a lesser sentence. So, there's a little bit of a existential crisis that exists that's like, well, then what the hell am I even doing? Right? It's not going to make a difference as far as sentencing goes. I feel like I can cry for 1,000 years and still never be able to truly articulate the impact that this loss has had on not just me, but my husband, my children. I could probably go on for the rest of my life and still have more to say. So I kind of had to switch gears because the purpose for me isn't so pointed, right? It's a little vague. And I started writing, like 3 different types of speeches. One was almost like a funeral speech, like, an ode to Kaylee and Maddie. And then one was more so directed towards, like that raw heartbreak of, speaking to them throughout this whole process and, giving them in some semblance a goodbye of like a close to this chapter. And then the third type of speech that I was writing was directed at the defendant himself. And I mean, that's what I eventually went with. So my speech isn't about the process, the court, the lawyers, the judge, it's not even really about Kaylee or Maddie, because Kaylee and Maddie know they've been with me every single step of the way, and I refuse to get up there and further re-victimize myself over and over and over for a defendant who does not give a damn. I no amount of tears, no amount of, tear jerkers, hearts, nothing is ever going to make him feel anything at best. And at worst, he enjoys it. And I'm just not gonna do it.
Yeah, he hasn't really shown any even small sign of emotion.
None.
So
truly,
yeah.
I don't think he's capable of empathy, of compassion, of, I don't think he's capable of love. I truly, truly believe that. So me professing my love for my sisters isn't going to do shit. It's just not. I get it.
Is your dad, do you know if your dad's going to go? Because I remember he was saying that he wasn't thinking of it. He wasn't planning on. I think he was emotional after the plea deal.
We all have a diva moment here or there. Okay. No, and I won't even. I'm joking. I'm not calling it a diva moment. Yes. So we will be attending. Right now, I know for sure myself, my mom, and my dad are going to be making speeches. I think my brother is as well. There's other members of our family who definitely wanted to, but they were not statutory victims of the crime. So they were not able to. So we were bound by parents, step-parents, siblings, and grandparents.
Oh, so you like a best friend or someone like that can't.
Nope. Not even like in lieu of. So, my two younger sisters don't want to go on to the stand, and I don't blame them at all. I support that. I support whatever they want to do, not that I support that specifically. And so we asked if my aunt could in lieu of that, and we were told no because she wasn't a statutory victim.
I guess
That's what they
to
did
me,
with
it
the
just seems like, why
Woodcocks.
not? Like, if he's already pled guilty and this is finally the family's chance to have their moment after all this time, like, what's the downside?
Yeah. Yeah, we've definitely had feelings like that. But you pick your battles.
Yeah.
That's a battle we've lost. We can always come back to it later, but we're not going to change their minds by kicking and screaming.
Right.
And we don't have anything else but kicking and screaming right now.
In terms of the like Dylan and the surviving roommates, do
Yeah.
you stay in touch with them at all, or?
No. So I've actually only reached out to them one time in my whole life, and it was because I knew that they were roommates. So it was literally on November 13th as everything was unfolding, and I messaged them on Instagram and I said, hey, we can't get a hold of Kaylee. Like, I'm sure her phone is just dead. Can you have her call us? Neither of those messages were replied to. I've never reached out again. They've never reached out to me as far as I know. And it is what it is. They don't owe me anything. I didn't know them personally. So yeah, it is what it is. They're not guilty of anything. They're not on trial here. They don't owe me even a conversation. So I wish them well, and I will always, defend them, and I will always support them. And, I think
They're
that's what
probably
Kaylee and Maddie would
scared.
want. And
Jenna.
that's that.
Yeah, I was thinking about them more at the last hearing, and I always think about you guys and the other parents, but sometimes I forget about how I'm sure it's not easy for them too,
Right. Yeah, I think that the level of like trauma and PTSD that has to exist because of something like that is enormous. And I wouldn't wish it on, well, most of my enemies. But they've had to weather a storm and walk through their grief silently and take every last bit on the chin, be prepared to, take the stand, to be brutalized on the stand, to have their texts nitpicked and their actions questioned, and have their, own typos used against them. And the last thing I ever want to do is add to that grief or burden. It's just not the right thing to do.
Yeah. And just one of my last questions, I was wondering, you've been such a fighter, you and your dad and your mom too, but just through this whole process, every step of the way, trying to advocate for Kaylee, trying to push the prosecution to do what you guys felt was right. I mean, every step of the way, even the beginning, pushing the police, it's just been fight, fight, fight. I'm just wondering, do you think you've had a chance personally to grieve or to really, have you processed it all yet? I mean, do you think you've accepted that Kaylee's gone, or do you think that that's going to come after this all sort of dies down?
Yeah. So I think specifically for my dad and I in the family, we're still waiting for that other shoe to drop. And I think it's because we had mentally prepared for this trial. So it's kind of like, block it out, block it out, block it out, block it out. We have a war ahead of us. Like, we're going to get through this war because I don't have time to take off right now. I don't have time to let off the gas right now. Like, we're doing this. So when, you know, and my dad and I had just sort of started talking together about what life looks like after trial and how, you know, we're both going to struggle with that new normal. Because when I mean every single day, my life has revolved around this, I mean it. And my dad too.
And I think with a lot of times with, if your family member, if something happened, like if they're already like, okay, let me try to figure out how to say this. Since she was like away at college, right? I think that maybe Steve could even like still tuck her in there, like in Moscow, and still think like she's fine. She's, you know, in Moscow. I've done that before, like, you know, with grief, try to place them, you know, where they are and then deal with that later. You know, that's very sad. This is going to, I feel like after the sentencing's over, it's going to be time for them to grieve, and they're going to need their privacy for a while.
You know, even when you're not thinking about it, you're thinking about it.
Oh, happy birthday, Cuffy.
And so to have that rug pulled when we were just starting to accept that, hey, we might have to, you know, we might have to face that music soon. And it was a good right step to start walking in that direction, to immediately, you know, orchestra right in front of you. It's definitely thrown me and my dad into a little bit more of a back to that immediate shock right after it happened. And yeah, I'm not there. And I thought I'd be there after the trial, after, you know, the sentencing, after this and that. And I don't know when I will be now. And I don't know, you know, when my dad will be now. And it's a little scary to not know what your grief looks like day to day to day when you thought that you had it kind of checked in a little bit. You know, I remember that first year after, I was, you know, pretty gentle with myself. I didn't know what might be triggering, what might not, how much downtime I might need, you know, trying to just be gentle with myself. Because sometimes you're so taken aback by the things that like hit you the most. And it's unexpected and it's scary to not have control of your emotions like that, at least for someone like me or for someone like my dad. You know, we don't really wear our hearts on the sleeve, publicly, at least, you know, with family, of course, it's different, but, and I kind of feel like I'm back to those early days again. Like, am I going to be okay? Is this going to be one day I'm okay and the next day I'm not? Is it going to be once it's unsealed? Is it going to be after we sit down with prosecutors and get, you know, told the story? Is it going to be after we get this or that? Or is it going to be when my daughter turns 3? And for whatever reason, that's the day. So yeah, definitely have not fully been living in the reality of Kaylee and Maddie being gone. And I excused it by saying that, you know, I was doing the brave thing and toughening myself up for trial. But truly, I think it was just a way to live in that denial for a little longer. And to not have that option anymore feels really raw. And I imagine my dad, you know, I don't want to speak for him, but he probably feels similar in a lot of ways. You know, maybe different in some. I think that his grief and his emotions in general manifest a little more as like anger. I think that that's his defense mechanism. Where I think mine is more, you know, avoidance, no contact, kind of, you know, switched on the emotions. But yeah, I think that all of the families still have, you know, maybe a ways to go. Some, of course, us, maybe more than others. Maybe that just is because we're not very well-rounded, or, because we lived in that denial for so long. I don't really know, but yeah, I don't really know if I answered your question either.
No, you did. I think you've just been so focused on the fight.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think my dad and I buried our heads in the sand a little bit to the emotional side of it by just digging as deep as we could into, the legal side of it. And, I guess it is what it is. We will have to face this, and, we'll do it. We'll do it together. We'll do it with our family. Yeah, I have a long way to go, for sure.
You mentioned getting the full story from the prosecution after the sentencing. I mean, do you want to sit down with them and hear everything they know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's, something that we've been told from the very, very, very beginning, before an arrest was even made. We'll sit down at the end of this, and, we'll be able to talk candidly and say XYZ, blah, 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 blah.
They better
So
give
I
that
think that that's
family that.
something that we are obviously very eager for, to the point where if the gag order is lifted on the 17th, tomorrow, I've already reset a meeting that I said is cancelable if it doesn't happen. Because, yeah, I think it's important. I think that, a lot of cases are based off of circumstantial evidence, and that doesn't make them bad or weak cases. This particular situation had, I don't know, physical evidence with the DNA being left at the scene, but I know there is so much circumstantial evidence that exists that didn't make its way to the public docs. And it just goes back to that, almost like that grief where it's like, I don't know exactly what's going to hit me the hardest, right? Sometimes I'm totally fine. And, when Kaylee's death certificate came in, I, trudged through, I was okay. Like, obviously you have emotions around it, but I was able to put those to the side. But when that PCA came out, I was down for days. And obviously you don't expect that. That should have been, oh my gosh, there's a solid case here. They have someone in custody, he's being extradited. And I feel that way about the evidence. And I feel so strongly about it in making my victim impact statement, because I feel almost cheated in a way to not have this information, because I'm like, you're setting me up to have so many regrets. Because right now I think that, this piece of the information really, really hurt me. Like the fact that he also bought a sharpener, right? And that to some people isn't anything, right? And I understand that. But to me, that shit hurts my soul, right? So it's like, how many other little things like that exist that can help give me a more complete view of my impact that I can then articulate into words? Because I've had so many regrets this whole process, right? I mean, so many. But I didn't want to do it this time. I didn't want to have regrets, and I didn't want to, feel like I left any cards behind. I'm not holding any punches here. So it's hard to do that when, I don't even have a full hand that I'm playing with. Like, you guys are playing poker and I'm playing Uno. I'm going to do my best, but I damn well know when it all comes out and when I hear it, it's going to be the smallest damn thing that I'm like, I wish I would have confronted him with that. But we've tried. We're still trying. I won't give up until there's no other option. But it's not looking good. It's not looking like we're going to have any more information
That sucks.
than we do right now.
Yeah, I guess I always thought about the gag order with, like, in terms of the press getting information.
How
but
do you,
I sort of
how do you expect them to do a victim's impact statement though? Really? If they are only going to be able to do like half of what's been impacted. I mean, like they don't have all the information. They don't have all the evidence. They don't have, they know, yeah, okay, Bryan did it. But if they knew like, maybe how he did, like how like he went from, the third floor to the second, like if they knew all of the information, I think that maybe that'd make them feel a little bit better because they would have a little more anger in them to go at Kohberger with. And that's really what the victim's impact statement is for. Let's be real. Let's be real. It's a chance for you to confront the victim. Confront the perp, sorry, you as the victim, and you get to say how this whole thing's impacted you, whatever it may be, whether it's a murder, a theft, a car accident, whatever it may be.
I forgot that it's also the way that you guys can find out the details too, because the gag order has also applied to you.
Yes. So we aren't covered by the gag order, but the people who know the information are covered by the gag order from talking to us even.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've heard bits and pieces, right? People come to us and say, this, that, blah, 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 blah. And of course we're appreciative for that. They help put a bigger view, but you can't trust that information all the time. Because sometimes it's false, and it's not someone's fault that it's false. But it would just be nice to walk in just so confident, just so knowledged, and be able to feel like in that moment, what I'm saying right now, what I'm doing right now is the very, very best that I have to offer. No excuses, no, oh, well, I wish this or I wish that, I love to make excuses for myself. So to be able to like remove that option, to just be like, no, like you're gonna write, sit down and you're gonna write this, and this is the best that you can give. No, well, if I'd had that, or if I, period. Would have been nice. And the dream's not dead, but
sad.
She's on life support.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me, Olivia. I mean, I know it's not easy to talk about, and I'm honored that you were so open with your emotions and just everything that you and your family have been through. And I'll see you at the sentencing, and it's been a privilege to get to know you and your dad and your mom, because you, like I said, you really are incredible people. I mean, you really are like just amazing.
Thanks, Bryan. No, there's a few, people that I've really, really, really kind of grown, inclined to, and you're definitely one of them. So thanks for, just kind of talking candidly with me and, letting it be less, rapid fire, a little less canned and a little more, authentic to who I am, and even, a little convoluted and jumbled at times, but you're one of the good guys.
For more,
You're one of the good guys. He is, though, he really is. So tomorrow we're going to go over, when it doesn't fix that. We're going to go over the full timeline, and I have like an interactive timeline that will, it's like a deep dive interactive timeline, and we'll go through that. You're waking up? Did you just bite your tongue or something? What did my dog just do? You cool? Okay. It's Mia's world. I don't know what the heck was. I don't know what she just did. So court, it'll be on the 23rd. So it'll be, what's today? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Wednesday, it'll be Wednesday. Is that right? Thursday, Wednesday. I'm like Wednesday, Thursday. I'm like trying to think. I don't know. I like need to get my sleep schedule back on track, I feel like. But it'll be at 9 a.m. their time, so 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'll be on a little before then. Usually they're late when it comes to court, but And I'm sure they'll be late probably this day too, because they're going to be shuffling in a lot of people, getting them all seated, making sure everybody's, okay. And then, getting the proceedings underway. So I'll be back on tomorrow evening. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I don't think so. I'll be back on tomorrow evening at around 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I was trying to think maybe a little before then if I get everything done before then. But I will let you know what's going on tomorrow. I'll put a community post up. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do before you leave the live tonight. There's like 53% of my people that aren't subscribed to me that watch me. I'm like, hit that button. It's okay. If you guys don't mind, hit the like button on your way out as well. Don't forget the bell icon to be alerted to new content if you're into this sort of thing. We do talk true crime nightly here. Also, they did put in a motion to extend the no contact order for 99 years. That's what Bill Thompson said. He wants it done for 99 years. So hopefully that motion will go through. I'm sure that'll go through. I also put on, y'all, is Tom still in here? Okay. So I went back and I started rewatching the Gilgo Beach Killer House of Secrets. It's on Peacock. It's a 3-part docuseries. And it's really good. It's really, 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 really good. So I'll have the first episode on our Patreon tomorrow. And then I'll put that on the community tab too, as soon as I upload it. So I just have to upload it in the morning and it'll be on there for you guys. It's very weird. It's very creepy. It's all the things. I think Asa Ellip's going to really upset me. I have a feeling in these interviews, but I mean, as of right now, he's only alleged killer. So, he's going to have his day in court as well. And his woman's sticking by her man, I guess. So a lot more than what Bryan Kohberger, got. So, but thank you guys for being here. I'll be back on tomorrow evening and I will see you guys all then. Bye guys.
Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to live this out.